Jai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. It's a pleasure to be here and have this opportunity today to address all of you about our Krishna consciousness. So, Krishna consciousness for most people, Om Gyan Padandasya Janam Jana Sharakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Krishna consciousness in Kali Yuga mostly means Bhagavad Gita. Most people don't even understand Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. And because, unfortunately, we consider that spiritual life, we generally try to do the minimum. And we try to do the minimum, and we can say, well, Srila Prabhupada gave us 4 regulated principles, 16 rounds. But when he gave that, it was because everybody was doing service 18 hours a day. Therefore, you had some justification for doing the minimum. So, Bhagavad Gita helps us to go beyond the minimum. We may only be able to do the minimum for some time. The example of our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, he also did the minimum, externally speaking. But he also said, there was never a moment in my life when I forgot about Krishna. Maybe a little difference than us. Krishna doesn't appear on Netflix. So, generally speaking, maybe he does somewhere. So the point is that we have to try to really enter, just like in today's Srimad Bhagavatam class, it was stated that we should become Shrutidar, which means Not that we remember every word, we have a photographic memory. That's one aspect of a fully realized Shruti Dhar. But it means that it enters into the heart. We don't understand Krishna consciousness from the intellectual platform, because otherwise it would not be fair. It would not be fair if if you have to be an intellectual to understand Krishna consciousness. Krishna never says that. It's mostly about attitude, not so much about, or mental platform, even worse. You know? Mental platform, how long can we maintain the mental platform? And therefore Krishna says, we should surrender. You know? And he describes the surrendering process. He describes it in a few places, but the most complete description he gives is that nirmana moha chitta sanga dosha. That nirmana, first of all, we give up false prestige. Otherwise, distinguishing ourselves from others. Yeah, we should distinguish ourselves from others by serving their lotus feet. Otherwise, we don't distinguish ourselves by putting ourselves above, but we distinguish by putting ourselves below. So this is the way that Krishna's first description of surrender, that nirmana moha, and nirmana and nirmoha. We have no illusion, no time for illusion. Rupa Goswami, he says that one of the principles of advancing in spiritual life is that abhyartha kalatvam, that we don't waste any time. Srila Prabhupada one time in great humility, Srila Prabhupada said, so I wasted so much time. And Prabhupada, what did he consider wasting so much time? His family life. Because he received the order, I think he just, first two children had just been born. And he considered that time from 1922 to 1944, when he actually began Back to Godhead magazine, he considered that time waste of time. Not that waste of time in the sense of duty. Sense of duty, you do it. But from the higher point of analysis, from the Bhagavad Gita point of analysis, it's moha. I mean, nice moha, or authorized moha, and necessary, because we are physically and biologically equipped to feel this affection for family. But the real cause of that affection is not even biological or physical, because animals also have physical and biological attraction to family. But we have spiritual attraction, which we have to awaken. The spiritual attraction means that we are naturally inclined to that which is most intimate. But if we don't know what is most intimate, the most intimate thing will be related to the body, which is family. Family is not related to the soul. It is related to the soul. Mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Yes. And on the level of the soul, there's only one family. That's Krishna's family. There's no other family. Well, there's Narayan family and the Shringha family, but they all descends from Krishna. It's all one spiritual family. The Ayodhya family, Vaikuntha family, Goloka family. So this family, if we want family affection to be near moha, then we have to add Krishna consciousness. And we have to see our children not as a product of my body, or my father as a, bodily relationship. That bodily relationship is there, uh, but to make it complete and perfect and not illusory, we have to add Krishna. Then we can understand that affection becomes complete. It comes from the spiritual platform, not just biological platform, which any living entity has. Maybe amoebas, they may not have so much family affection, but generally speaking, at least mammals and upwards, they have family affection. So, jita sangha dosha, uh, jita sangha dosha, the giving up faulty behavior, faulty association. Give up faulty behavior means you give up faulty association. Otherwise, if we associate, therefore, the first thing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned that is important for our spiritual advancement is sadhu sangha. Because from there, we will, through that association, through that sangha, we will feel the desire to be to practice spiritual life. As soon as we're alone, immediately the mind thinks, "Now, what can I do? What can I do that I usually don't do?" The mind will think like that, has that tendency. Whereas these young boys probably don't think like that. They have the great fortune not to have, and many of you, not unfortunate like those of us who lived a certain portion of life without any understanding of Krishna. Of course, sometimes having a partial understanding of Krishna can even be more dangerous because it's harder to give up the partial understanding. One thinks, just like one time I was flying from Mangalore to Bangalore or Mangaluru to Bangalore. So one man sitting next to us, he said, "Why are you dressed like this?" I said, "Oh, we're devotees of Krishna." He said, "Oh, Krishna, I know Krishna." I said, "Oh, yeah. So you read Bhagavad Gita regularly?" No. But I know Krishna. So sometimes partial understanding is not so good. And so this good association. Therefore, we have this temple, we have Bhiwandi temple, we have, Tain, we have all these places. But even then, we should not think that this is the place for association. The place for association is wherever we are. We should try to be associated. And especially since most people end up in family life, I don't see a whole lot of brahmacharis here. So, and that means you have to make your family association. Not that I go to the temple to get away from the illusion. I'm living in illusion, and I go to the temple every once in a while to wake up a little bit, and then I go back. No, we have to make our family life. Srila Prabhupada, I recommend everybody read 2nd Canto, 3rd chapter, text 22 purport. How does Srila Prabhupada, you can read it later. That purport, Srila Prabhupada defines how one should conduct family life. When you read it, you might think it's easier to live in a temple. So because that is the duty of the Acharya. That is the duty of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, he's giving us the highest standard, meaning the highest standard for the most basic Shastra. Bhagavad Gita is a basic Shastra. But for us in Kali Yuga, it's like, who can do that? Who can do all these things? And then, these are all questions of action and attitude. It's not something that requires deep intellect or it requires mental ability, mental agility. It just requires uh, that be a little serious in spiritual life. And after that, avyatmanitya. I should always be living on the platform of the eternal platform of the soul. Not, not that it's some theoretical thing. I have to make it my reality. I live there. Just like I always mention this in relation to chanting japa. Srila Prabhupada gave a very simple understanding of chanting the Mahamantra. He said, here is Radha, here is Krishna, here is Vrindavan. Anybody can remember that. But it has a deeper understanding. It means when I chant these holy names, I should be associating with Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. I should be in the Vrindavan atmosphere when I chant. Not that by, putting some pictures of Vrindavan. That you can also do. But it means that I have to allow my consciousness to enter Vrindavan. Because Vrindavan is not a place so many kilometers south of Delhi. Vrindavan is a state of spiritual consciousness. It's also a place, but it's not a physical place that we go to. We go to it through our consciousness. We don't go to it through, well, there is a Vaikuntha airplane, but that Vaikuntha airplane is not traveling through outer space, and it actually means your consciousness goes to Krishna, and then, so this is the spiritual platform, and Vinivitta kamaha, the most difficult thing. I have to give up sense gratification. Just like in the Srimad Bhagavatam here in this temple, we're reading, a complex part of the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 87th chapter. It's a very philosophically deep. But right in the very beginning of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, defining this whole thing, the first, and I've seen this many times in Krishna book, because we are very much on the bodily platform, Srila Prabhupada takes like 3 pages just to explain everything in terms that we can understand before he goes into the actual analysis of the, even these things are not there. It's not there in the Bhagavatam verses. It's not there in the Acharya's commentaries. It's because Srila Prabhupada, the duty of the Acharya is to know what people have to hear. What do they need to hear? What will they actually understand? So, so giving up sense gratification, and that's very difficult because we live in an atmosphere of sense gratification. So how do you give up something that is surrounding you? How do you give it up? You understand, you get a higher taste. And this is where especially proper chanting of the Mahamantra comes in. And and this is what it means to go beyond the minimum. Beyond the minimum is not so much a question of quantity, but a question of quality. We have to increase the quality so we get the taste, so that taste will take us beyond sense gratification. I mean, one of the most common questions I get, I do this, I'm studying this and that. Well, how can I? Well, you have to get the taste. Just like if somebody cooks and they use no spices, no ghee, it may be very healthy, but no taste. No. And so, who will eat like that? Some yogi, some tapasvi, but no, there must be taste because rasa is the very essence of the desire of the living entity to understand what is beyond this bodily conception of life. And then Krishna says, once you do that, these are progressive. Otherwise, even before you can give up sense gratification, you have to become, free from false prestige and illusion. You have to work on these things. Now, how do you do that? You hear about reality, and then um, after that comes uh, some of what is it? Can't remember the next line. Somebody can look up 15, 15:5. Dvandvaya vimukta. Dvandvaya vimukta. So, freedom from duality. We were talking about this today. Talking about I was talking about bipolar symptoms. And I said, everybody's bipolar. This world is bipolar. The bipolar world, just some people have more than others. And, if you get too much, then you'll be declared to be beyond the safety level. But according to Bhagavad Gita, any type of duality is dangerous. Not like there's nice duality and not so nice duality. It's just a question of degree. Because some people, if they're a little more, a little freer from duality, then they think, oh, so I'm better than others. So then you go back to square number one, nirmana. So once we have to fill the heart with these tendencies, and then sukha dukkha samgyaya, one of the most difficult things. And therefore, both Prasad Maharaj and also Narada Muni explaining to Vyasadeva, they both say the same thing, that nobody looks for distress. Therefore, why are you looking for happiness? Because they're just two sides of the same coin. Otherwise, who looks for, give me some more distress. Although I have heard, especially in many Western countries, people, they're so overburdened or oversaturated with sense gratification that they actually try to experience suffering, and they find pleasure in suffering. That they can't find any more pleasure. You can't squeeze any more pleasure out of the body or out of the mind than you suffer. And we see that. Some people are very cruel. They're cruel to others because that's the pleasure they get. At least if you're cruel to someone, you can control them. You can be above them. So let me be above them. Just like a lot of modern Western music. It's about, kind of gangster consciousness. So this kind of gunda consciousness. It's glorified. Because many people, they don't have the opportunity. Because the whole nature of happiness and distress is that based on sense gratification. And therefore the Bhagavatam, especially the 11th canto, is like at least 10 different verses that say that happiness and distress is just, it's the same thing. A devotee doesn't find happiness or distress because spiritual happiness has nothing to do with the external condition. It actually has to do with giving up the external condition. Otherwise, not identifying with the external condition. Just like Markandeya Rishi, in one of his kalpas, he was blessed, which turned out to be more of a curse, to experience 7 kalpas. So, in the 4th kalpa, his disciples, he was doing meditating in the sun. They said, "Let us build you a roof. We'll build you a roof, and you can get some relief." No, I'll only be here for a little while. Only 7 kalpas. So, of course, it's not like these things are not easy. But here, Krishna is speaking this to Arjuna, who's living in a palace. We may think, "Oh, this is so difficult." I'm working. Arjuna was killing his relatives. So we may think our work is difficult. His work was kill my relatives. So, and still, Krishna spoke all these things to Arjuna. Gachant Yamudha, and don't be a fool. Don't be a rascal. And then Param Abhyayam Tat. And there it is Padam. Padam means, literally in this sense, you take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God. So Padam Abhyayam. Padam means to be situated somewhere. But Param Abhyayam, to be situated in the imperishable. To be situated beyond that place which is material, which is temporary. So this is Krishna's instruction. And so many others' instructions. Just like I was mentioning to one devotee today. And these are process of surrender. What to speak? Surrender just brings you to the point where you can actually serve Krishna. But then Krishna says, "You want to be dear to me?" It's one of my favorite verses. You want to be dear to Krishna? No. Then Yasman no jujate loko, lokan no jujate saya. That you never bother anyone, nor are you ever bothered by anyone. How many of us can do? How many of us can do that? So and so is bothering. We come to the big complaint. We're always complaining about someone. Everyone's going to the police station, filing a FIR. So and so did this. But someone who's actually fully Krishna conscious, just like Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, he says that that Vishwapurnam Sukayate, I only find happiness. Otherwise, if you live in Lebanon or Gaza Strip, how much happiness will you find? But if a devotee lives in Gaza Strip, they'll think, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is definitely helping me to be detached from this material world." I see. So this is the nature of Krishna consciousness. We have to take it seriously. We should be blissful. A nice kirtan, nice prasadam. Not that we're just, this material world is miserable, everything's miserable. But Srila Prabhupada said one time in one conversation that some devotees were saying, Srila Prabhupada, some people say our books are very pessimistic. And Prabhupada said, if you want to get out of this material world, you have to be a little pessimistic. Otherwise, Bhagavad Gita, you can see it as a little pessimistic. But as Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, that these are the regulated principles of freedom. Otherwise, and I always give the example that just like, we have our mridanga player, our harmonium player. When you start to play the mridanga, it's not like it just flows. You have to figure out, get everything, learn the proper rhythm. So in the beginning, there are always regulated principles of freedom. Then when you learn those principles, then everything flows very nicely. So sadhana bhakti, or whatever level of sadhana we do, whatever level we can do according to our external reality, is what we do. We do it seriously. Just like when Narada Muni asked Lord Vishnu, he said, who is your favorite devotee? So Lord Vishnu gave many different answers. One of them was, uh, he said, you go to this man, he is a farmer, he's agriculturalist, and he's my greatest devotee. So Narada Muni went and he saw him. He came early morning, he came out of the house, offered some prayers, and then began to plow all day long, plowing. And then at the end of the day, he offered prayers and went and took rest. And Narada thought, this is the greatest devotee? No. Krishna consciousness made easy. No. Krishna consciousness light. No. So, so he went to the Lord Vishnu. He was a little perplexed. So Vishnu said, Narada, I want you to take one vessel full of ghee, or maybe it was ghee, whatever it was, some liquid. And so I want you to walk for 1 kilometer, yojana, or whatever distance, long distance. But you must not spill one drop. So Narada was walking. He came to the end. There was Lord Vishnu. So he said, so did you spill one drop? No. Did you think of me? No. But I was following your order. Of course, it's better to think of him, but he was giving that example. If someone just, without even like this deep meditation on Vishnu or Krishna, if someone is simply following the instruction coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and faithfully following, then he becomes a great devotee. Otherwise, also Lord Vishnu was showing that everyone is greatest devotee. Anyone who dedicates oneself to Krishna consciousness in whatever varna, in whatever ashram, they are just like we met someone today, and I mentioned this point that it's not how much you give or how much you do, but the quality of that offering. Are you doing it without any ulterior motive? You're simply doing it to please Krishna. It doesn't matter so much. Krishna's not, what can we offer to Krishna? Just like Srila Prabhupada said once, that, Krishna does not need your burnt chapati. Well, some of you ladies are probably very good at making wonderful chapatis, but Krishna's not, it's not like we're going to make some perfectional offering. Although, on the other hand, we should do the best we possibly can, the greatest quality that we can offer to Krishna. But Krishna is interested in not so much the, can we equal the goddesses of fortune? Can we equal Srimati Radharani in our offering? No. But we can do the best we can. And Prabhupada gave this example that just like if you go to the ocean and you have a glass and you fill the glass with water, then this is perfect. You have not contained the whole ocean in the glass, but you filled the glass. So this is our objective. We want to fill our consciousness with Krishna consciousness. So this is the message of Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he established a system of, every day, ideally, we should all hear, possible even a class on Bhagavatam, a class on Bhagavad Gita. Someone asked me one time, it doesn't seem fair. Prabhupada said this, so the devotees in the temple, They can do this every day, but how can I do this every day if I have to go to work for so many hours? I said, if you hear Bhagavad, if you're working so hard that you have no time, but you read one verse of Bhagavad Gita, one verse of Bhagavatam. Don't even read the purport. You don't have time for the purport. You just read one verse, because that's all you can do. Krishna will be totally satisfied. But the devotee in the temple, and anyone else, of course, they can do it, but especially the devotee in the temple who has an obligation to live a certain lifestyle, they must hear this Bhagavatam, because they are responsible for giving it to others. And we're all responsible. By Lord Chaitanya's arrangement, we all have this duty, which is why I've been promoting a different style of Sankirtan. Not so much giving some relief to the brahmachari, that everyone distribute one book a week. And I told one devotee, don't do more than that. And, oh, that sounds good. No. I said, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to be in touch with that person and cultivate them until they have Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and all of Prabhupada's books. So this is going to require some time. But therefore, you won't be distributing just one book a week. You'll be distributing one set of Bhagavatam a week, one set of Chaitanya Charitamrita a week. And you'll be inspiring those people to do the same. Therefore, essentially, by doing that one book, you may be doing 52 sets of Bhagavatam, or 53 sets of Bhagavatam, 53 sets of Chaitanya Charitamrita, 53, because you're going to inspire them. By your effort, that many more books will, ideally, but at least so many more books. So don't do too many, but do it completely. Complete the job. Prabhupada was very, very desirous. Just like recently we had Bhadra Purnima. And Prabhupada was very desirous that people would get Bhagavatam, especially. Also Chaitanya Charitamrita, but many people can't understand Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just like I was telling the story the other day that when I was young brahmachari distributing Chaitanya Charitamrita in the airport, Madhya Lila, Antya Lila 4, distributing to businessmen in the airport. And so, we always tried to distribute to someone who's just getting on the plane, so they can't complain or try to give the book back or something. Because why did Prabhupada have us distributing Antya Lila? Because he as soon as one printing would come out, we had to distribute it so it would be enough money to print the next one. That's how, there was no money, very little money at that time. And so, so I distributed, and the businessman, but then he went and sat down, and he started reading the book. I said, oh, I better go to another side of the airport or something, Then he got up and he started walking over. What am I going to do? He's going to try to return it. Who can understand? I can't even understand Antya Lila 4, what to speak of him. And he said, excuse me, I have a question about your book. Yeah, okay. He said, this person, Chaitanya, is he a real person or is he a ghost? Because it says here that the fisherman thought he was a ghost. I said, let me go all the way. I said, no, he's God. I said, oh, he's God. Okay, thank you. Sat down and continued to read. So it was Srila Prabhupada's mercy that somehow or another these people could get something that they would never understand. There's like another time when I had to take over one temple that was totally in debt. They couldn't pay their rent. They had no money. I closed the temple and I said, let's go on traveling Sankirtan. But the only book we had was Nectar Devotion. And so we're distributing Nectar Devotion. This is in Ecuador. And Ecuador is like anybody who's been to that, they're not like a very intellectual group of people. And, but that's all we had. I had 18,000 Nectar of Devotion I had to distribute. Before they wouldn't send me any more books until I sold those and paid the BBT debt. So we distributed Nectar, and somehow or another, nobody ever complained. Nobody ever returned the book. People were joining, even from, they didn't understand anything. And so, but this is all, the point is that these things happen when we have that faith and devotion. And the same thing when we read Bhagavad Gita, if we have the faith and devotion that Krishna will give me the ability and the intelligence to understand Krishna's instruction. Because even when Krishna says, Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, I will give you the intelligence. But what kind of intelligence? Yena mamupayanti te. The intelligence to come with me, not the intelligence that you can compete to get into the best university, or that's just taking care of the body. All these things we learn in this material world just to take care of the body. The only thing that really nurtures the soul is Srila Prabhupada's books, Shastra, Guru Shastra, Sadhu. These things will nurture our very existence. So, so this is how we should always be trying to go to the next level of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, and I'll conclude with this. Prabhupada, when he was in New York for the first time he took the subway, metro, subway. He took it, and he went the wrong direction, because he had never been in a subway. They had no subways in India. They barely had cars in India at that time. What to think of subways? And so, I remember in those days we would go. There was no traffic jam. Even here in Mumbai, there was no traffic jam. There were very few cars, and of course there was a little traffic jam even that time because the roads were so bad. But anyway, so then Prabhupada, he took the concept that he said you can never be stagnant in Krishna consciousness. You either go toward Krishna or you go toward Maya. The force of material energy will, if you don't take the force of the spiritual energy of Yoga Maya to progress in your Krishna consciousness, then Mahamaya will take you in the wrong direction. And so this is the thing. You can't go in the metro, and nobody goes in the metro or the subway and just, camps out. Well, I guess some people do, but, it's not like what people go there for. You go one direction or the other. So we are forced by the material energy or by the spiritual energy. And our real freedom at this point in life, our real freedom is below, or which energy do I want to take shelter of? Krishna Shakti or Maya Shakti? And this is our choice. Then the more we advance, otherwise the more you advance in spiritual life, the more freedom you have. But foolish people will think, no, this spiritual life, it's all restriction. Don't do this, don't do that, get up, everything you do is uncomfortable, get up too early, just eat these things, don't eat too much, don't do too much, So everything seems like restriction, but no, it's freeing the spirit soul to be able to progress. We have to allow the consciousness to become untied from all the different layers of illusory energy that are covering us. So this is our Krishna consciousness. This is what Krishna is offering us in Bhagavad Gita. And so Anyway, these are some thoughts on how we can take advantage of our spiritual life, our spiritual consciousness, and some things I wanted to share. So thank you all very much for your kind attention. Any comments? Any questions? Yes. What is the what? Most important question? None of them are the most important. You know, the first question is, what is the highest practice of religion? Savai-pumso, savai-pumso, paro, dharmo, to bhakti doksaje. But not all of them are important questions. And from those 6 questions, or Vishwanath actually divides it into 7 questions, 6, 7 questions. From there, the Bhagavatam comes. It's not that any one question is the most important. They're all very important. But you can say the first one is the most important because if you don't understand that, then how will you understand the rest? If you don't understand that serving Krishna, and specifically the Bhagavatam uses the term adoksaja, meaning you can't do it with your mind and senses. That's what adoksaja means. That's why this name adoksaja is used in philosophical pursuit, because it's something you can't do with your mind and senses. You have to do it through bhakti.
You mentioned about that 18,000 nectar devotion which you had to sell.
About
18,000 nectar devotion. You had to sell that.
no 18,000.
18,000.
Yeah.
1
1/8. Yeah.
Remember how you sold them? Can you share something?
I just here's a book. Take this book. It'll help you. Any.
Are you alone or you had a group of some?
We just went from. I mean, these are not small books. A lot of our Sankirtan at that time we did in buses. We would get in the bus and make a presentation and give a book to everybody. And then, while the bus is driving, and then you give a book to everybody, and then you go back in the beginning and you ask for a donation. So you have like a captive audience of 40, 50 people, and they can't go away. And so that's how we usually tried to do at that time. Any other questions? Yes. How we enter into that state of consciousness by chanting. Just remember, just don't chant and put the mind on automatic pilot. Or don't put your chanting on automatic pilot and just take off in the mental sphere, which is what we have a tendency to do. I'm doing my chanting. It's like now I'm going to be stuck here for the next hour and a half or 2 hours. What can I think about? And that's why when they asked Srila Prabhupada, what should I think about when I chant? And how will I control the mind when I chant? Prabhupada said, there's no question of mind. Otherwise, it's chanting process, a meditation. You're meditating on the holy name. You don't have to think of anything else. And if you're chanting properly, then remembrance of Krishna will come. If remembrance of Krishna doesn't come, then it means you're probably chanting mechanically. In other words, if you're chanting properly, you'll remembrance of Krishna, and not just in the name of the everybody externally knows I'm chanting Krishna's names, but to really feel that, and then the forms of Krishna will become manifest within one's consciousness, and then after some time, the qualities of Krishna. But they won't become manifest automatically. You have to hear about them, but you'll remember them, because Krishna will manifest himself. First, he manifests in the form of the name. When you can meditate on the name, then he can manifest his form. It's like in the Bhagavatam, every time it describes Krishna's form, there's a very thorough description. How he's dressed, how he's doing, what kind of flower garland he has. So, in the same way, when we go before the deities, we should meditate in that way. Just like the second canto of Bhagavatam teaches us, we begin at the lotus feet of Krishna, we meditate as we go up. And so this is what it means to meditate. Not that we do things mechanically. Okay, now we're supposed to go bow down at this altar, and now we get up and see a deity looks very nice, and then go down, bow to the other altar, and then I ask, Gornitai, can you give me this? And I ask Radha Krishna, can you do this for me? Yes. Well, actually, Srila Prabhupada said many times there is no material life. Otherwise, material life is a distinction that we make to justify being in Maya. Actually, ultimately, there's nothing material. Ultimately, everything is coming from spirit. There is no material. Material means the conception that there's something independent of Krishna. But when we have spiritual consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada said, when you see this table or this floor, it's like a mother seeing the shoe of the child. When she sees the shoe of the child, she thinks of the child. She doesn't see the shoe as separate from the child. We like to departmentalize. No. Now I have my spiritual life. Now I have my recreational life. Now I have my economic part. This is what most people do. So even when they try to take up Krishna consciousness, they have this tendency. Yes, now I have, and this is why I began by saying, when we do the minimum, this is what happens. No, I have to do this because this is the minimum. But yeah, that's it. You have to start somewhere, but we have to understand minimum. How much taste will we get from a minimum? You know? Just like if you eat the bare minimum to survive, you know, will you be very happy with your eating process? So you can survive, but you won't be very blissful. You won't be very healthy, but you can survive. Yeah. Some army story? I don't have any army story. Not very interesting. My army story was getting out. That was the best part. I mean, yeah, I guess the nicest thing was that I was there, and when I came in touch with Bhagavad Gita, uh, devotees sent me beads and sent me a letter telling me how to chant. And then Rameshwar at Prabhu, at that time it was Rameshwar Brahmachari, he sent me 25 boxes of books and he said, you should do Sankirtan. So I really, this all takes like, you know, week, 10 days. You send a letter. He sent me the books. He said, do Sankirtan. I sent him a letter. What is Sankirtan? And he said, sell the books. I wrote him, how do I sell the books? And he said, you figured that out. Yes. Well, of course, I didn't have all that much association. The only association I had was in the 1976 Mayapur Vrindavan Festival. And by that time, anytime after 1975, anyone who already didn't have an established relationship with Prabhupada usually couldn't even come and see him. I mean, I was fortunate enough to, because I had some typing ability, that the Prabhupada's secretary enlisted me to type things for Prabhupada. And so wasn't typing letters. I wasn't that confidentially cleared. I didn't have classification clearance, no. But type things. I typed the sannyas mantra for all the sannyasis taking persons taking sannyas. I typed some memorandums, but I was staying right outside of Srila Prabhupada's room, so I could, anytime I got the opportunity, I would go over and observe what was happening in Srila Prabhupada's room, which I wasn't supposed to do, but I did it. And so, which, the secretary caught me a few times. And I said, well, what do you expect? He said, all right. So anyway, I mean, I can remember a few things, but it wasn't. I mean, I do remember one thing on the only morning walk I went on, which was in Mayapur. I mean, actually, I kind of went on the second tier of a walk in Vrindavan. But this walk, I was at the end, and Prabhupada started walking, and he stopped, and he took his cane, and he told everyone to keep going. And we were wondering, what's Prabhupada doing? And so Prabhupada was there. And usually, sometimes Prabhupada would just walk and chant, and he wouldn't say that much. And sometimes he would speak the whole time. But this time, he was just chanting, and he kind of, everybody kept moving, and they couldn't quite figure out. So then Prabhupada, he started walking again. Everybody waited, and then when pretty much at the end of the walk, he said, "So I am trying to train you as Brahmins, but you are all mlechas." He said, there was a piece of paper on the ground, and you all walked by it. Now imagine how much work we would have nowadays here in India. The Prabhupada said that this is the holy Dham. And how can you leave something like this in the Dham? So Prabhupada, everything Prabhupada did, everything Prabhupada spoke was all a lesson. And anyway, that was one thing I remember very specifically. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Yeah, get up as early as possible. Chant as sincerely as possible, and chant as much as you can. Always remember Krishna when you're chanting. Many things I can think of that could be useful. All right. So some of the questions are wandering off the topic. So I think we can stop here. And I want to thank you all very much for your kind attention, and pray that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, by the mercy of Sri Guru and Gauranga, that everyone can progress nicely, continue becoming more and more blissful in Krishna consciousness. The Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Jai Gaura Premanandi.